Yeah,
that
steady, mate, steady.
thou art God, and that I am thy servant, Lord God of Abraham. Hear, oh, hear me, Lord, and answer me. Lord God of Abraham, Isaac and Israel, oh, hear me, oh, hear me.
Hey, was that you?
Yeah. Was it all right?
Oh, come up here. We want to talk to you. No, come on up, friend.
Come on up, friend.
No, thanks. I'll stick to my own line. But that's where you ought to be. Well, so long, chump.
So long. And good luck.
The same to you.
Hello, welcome to Movie Umpers. My name is Bob Sham.
I am Angela.
And this sounds here maybe, dogs. It's, we bid farewell to Mr. Paul Robeson this month. And I also had you watch a half-hour documentary, which is also available on this Criterion set. Because this month's theme, Portraits of the Artist, was named for and inspired by this Criterion collection of Paul Robeson called Portraits of the Artist. Of course, we're talking about we talked all month long about two leading black men on both ends of the spectrum of film history. And Paul Robeson has been our classic choices.
And I have fallen in love with him. And even more so after the documentary,
Would you make love to him? You're going to need a flashlight and a shovel.
I was going to say, I think he's dead.
Yeah.
The documentary, I think, is called Triumph of the Artist. It's not Portrait of the Artist.
Sure.
But it's on Max, so watch it.
It's only a half hour long.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes, and it's a lot of information. Like, it's really totally well, beautifully narrated by Sidney Poitier. It's very good.
Now, Paul Robeson, big labor organizer, big workers' rights guy. He spent a lot of time in the old Soviet Union. Now, there's a point in Hollywood history where being like a socialist or a communist or identifying with those ideologies was maybe a more casual experience, though the governments were always a little paranoid of the Soviet Union, even going into World War II, even though they were technically our allies. There was a lot in early Hollywood that seemed to toy with the ideas because they became very popular over that span of time, especially coming out of the fucking Great Depression when there's so much systemic failure and a lot of the Dust Bowl and shit like that. That kind of living makes you think like, ooh, we could really use some kind of a social safety net. Old Paul Robeson, he, as you could imagine, a guy who's openly, into socialism, an open socialist. Of course, he broke out singing, Old Man River, which apparently that song was written for him.
Yeah.
And he changed.
Makes sense.
And he would change the lyrics over time to appeal to his political and social standards.
Or even what was happening even to him, because by the end, he's singing about, I will fight until I die.
And that performance in the James Well movie that blasted him, right? He would do global concerts, did very well.
But it was all so that he could speak about what he believed in. He wouldn't perform just a concert for the heck of it.
When he would go to like St. Petersburg or Moscow in the Soviet Union, they treated him like a king. And he spoke about like how unracist they were. But at the same time, he was also a global celebrity.
Part of his thing was he was talking about how things are in the U.S. And there's a point at the end of the documentary where he's speaking and he says, I'm very glad that we have now desegregated schools and, all these things are changing and happening. It's my understanding that this like global opinion of America was a big part of making these changes, like these changes starting happening. And I'm glad to have been part of that because he was going to other countries talking about what was happening in America. And they took his fucking passport away because they saw him as some sort of threat. He wasn't going over lying.
He went to Rutgers, was on a championship football team.
They erased him.
They did what we always talk about Stalin doing.
Yeah.
Like, they literally did that to him. I wonder if they've had to have put him back in by now, right?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, the
this
documentary said,
old. This documentary's old.
Sure, but the documentary said, at least at the time of the documentary, like, the team that he was on is the only team that's only lists 10 players.
Yeah.
Because he was a champion.
He was the 11th. And
he was the 11th.
The biggest fucker on the team.
Yeah, you know he was MVP. It's preposterous.
I know.
Yeah, they just tried to erase him.
Of course, he openly went to communist countries and shit. You know, I don't know exactly how Jackie Robinson felt because American public kind of pushed Jackie Robinson into the forefront to kind of represent this black view that countered Robison's view. And it's hard to say where Jackie Robinson was. Maybe it was kind of like a mid-20th century black celebrity version of the Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois debate. At the same time, you could imagine all this pressure Jackie Robinson is in. He's surrounded by all of these white people. He represented desegregation of that sport. But it's not until all colors can be as mediocre as the white guy is when it's truly desegregated, right?
Absolutely.
So he's got this, all these white people around him just demanding he be the good black man that represents their values. So it's just hard to say. I haven't seen that Jackie Robinson movie. I wonder if that touches base on that. But an interesting little thing I read about.
Robison then, he was 10 years he couldn't leave this country. He couldn't even go into Canada.
Yeah, you figured they'd want him out of the country.
Well, no, because they thought he was a bigger threat abroad.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I guess at
They
the
might have been
time,
right.
and if they didn't put him on television and they didn't put him on the radio, they can kind of keep him squashed for the rest of the world at the time. Now it would be impossible. He could just go online. But at the time, you could kind of bury someone. But what he did for that 10 years is he focused all of his attention on making things better.
I think the short documentary, just go watch it.
Yeah.
It's essentially about erasure. He was buried, and he's someone that deserves to be known a lot more about. And he's controversial on multiple levels, especially from in a very jingoistic Western point of view. He's certainly going to remain. This man would have been beyond his peers even today. No doubt about it. But go check that documentary out. It's only a half hour long on Mac. Triumph of the Artist, Paul Robeson. But Paul Robeson said that of all the movies that he had made, The Proud Valley was his favorite from 1940, directed by Penn Tennessean. And he said that because he felt like The Proud Valley was, of all the films he did, the one that represented workers and labor in a respected and honorable light. And apparently this movie might have been attempted to be blacklisted at the time by some British government. He's going to the Soviet Union and being like, Americans do not want a big war against you, trying to kind of assuage and he's arguing for peace more than anything.
Absolutely.
But,
peace and equality.
But, England's still very paranoid about Russia. And so many wanted to blacklist him. If this were somehow before the war broke out, or that this movie was kind of almost set to be a very much a socialist kind of movie. And you kind of get that vibe, but as we got it from this point on as a movie that's made right during the war, essentially.
Absolutely. They're talking about Hitler.
You do get that socialist undertone, but it's not overt. It could be kind of, it's just about anybody can kind of respect a worker to some degree, right?
Well, and, like you said, it does show the workers in a very good light, but they do also have those debates within the movie of people who think that they're somehow less than.
Yeah.
Because they're miners and they're doing this mine work, and this woman doesn't want her daughter to marry
they have to march towards the owners of all these mines. And
because no one will respond to their letters.
There is labor organization in this movie, no doubt about it. But we're talking about the Proud Valley. Yes. Good. Also it stars Paul Robeson, Edward Chapman, and Edward Rigby, and Simon Lack. Edward Chapman plays the guy he meets when he arrives into the town. And Edward Rigby is the hobo guy that sings bad songs on the streets.
Yeah. At the beginning of the movie, he jumps on a train and he meets this little guy, played
by Edward Rigby,
who says that he is always on this train. You shouldn't have known I would be on this train, because he basically lands on him. And he's like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, dude." He's like, I'm just looking for work. And he had been on a boat, I guess, a ship, and he got out in South Wales. And so he's like looking for somewhere to go. And the guy tells him, well, this train ends in this little mining town, but I have a way to get money.
I pick a well-known tune and I murders it. Now listen. And when your friends desert you at the time of your downfall, you'll find that your mother is the best friend of them all.
Surely the people in these valleys won't stand for that noise.
Why, this is one of my best districts. The more you hurt them, the quicker they pay you to go away.
So you can do this with me, right? And so they start going through the town and they're singing badly. That's how it begins. So then he's in that town and the miner guys have a choir and they're singing a song and their soloist is not there. And when it gets to the solo part from this road, he just starts singing that part. And the director, who's like the patriarch of the family that we get to know in this movie, he's also the director of the choir, and he hears him and he's so excited and he's like, let's keep going. So they basically finish out this whole song with Paul Robeson on the street. The second it's over, he runs to him and he's like, was that you?
And of course the song is great.
Amazing.
Combined. And,
amazing.
And if my number one criticism of this movie is that we don't have like 5 more scenes just like this.
I know.
That we get a little more singing in the mines.
And then we get the performance. At the end.
But the singing kind of lowers. And they're singing when they're like organizing and marching, but it feels just more like transitional. And I never wanted something to be a musical, almost a pure musical. So much of my life
really
is when I was sitting here watching The Proud Valley. He's a great singer. Every moment he's singing, that's what's so nice about that short doc, is that it goes through him singing. So it does kind of scratch that itch, even if it doesn't sit through the entirety of all the scenes. But yes, there are performances here that are really good vocal performances. And the movie is concentrating on these workers and labor organization, but come on, we couldn't have just had some more choir scenes in here. Like, come on, I really was. It really left you wanting more.
I know, and the reason that we don't have as many actual choir scenes in this movie, the music is more about building hope.
Yeah,
the music is more about like when they're depressed, they sing, even in the mine.
It's how they keep their spirits up.
Absolutely, and this man, this choir director, he just like takes Paul into his home. His wife doesn't want him at first, but it's not because he's the only black man in town. It's because they don't have room or money.
What you talking about? Where with us? I'd like to know.
Oh, we'll find room for him somewhere.
Somewhere? Dick Parry, have you forgot that we have 5 children of our own sleeping in this house?
No.
Well, I don't know what to make of you.
Oh, come now, Mum. Think what it'll mean to the choir.
You and your old choir. Why don't you bring all the members of your choir to sleep here? Make a barracks in my house and I've done with it.
Oh, come now, lovely.
Don't think you can get over me this time with your own nonsense.
Oh, come now, Mum.
Let me go.
Listen.
Too much I have listened to you.
And she's worried about being able to feed someone. And Paul's like, if you get me a job, I will pay. And her son wants to get married. So he becomes a lodger, and we do experience racism when he's going into work.
Yeah.
And, he's going to go down in the mines, and this one guy's like, I don't really get the seniority thing, But he's talking about, like, the choir director pulled seniority and I guess making him the soloist.
Yeah,
and
because
also
this guy
like,
just wandered into town. But then they give examples
giving him a job.
of everyone pulling the family card or the nepotism card.
Absolutely. And then one of them goes, we're all black down in the mines.
Yeah.
Anyway. But Paul gets upset by that, understandably.
He is,
and
like, mad for, like, 5 minutes.
he is, until they
He
get
holds that
down
anger.
in the mine, and he's still upset. And the guy's like, I know, we need to sing. Tells Paul, he's like, start a song, and he starts singing and he still doesn't like it. But then the other men voices come in.
Back to work with no repining all through the night. Overhead the stars are shining. All through the night they're singing. Dream the dark but dream of fleeting. Morning sun brings love leading. Sing me then a song of greeting.
In that moment, even though that man up there was being like an asshole and trying to exclude him,
Down
like,
there,
these are
it's a
his
brotherhood.
people. It's a brotherhood, yes.
So
And he is a very big part of it.
So they're working in the mines, and then something terrible happens. A guy's pocket some flames, and this whole, like, probably like a third of the choir dies, right? Essentially.
Yeah, and Paul-
then Paul, he brings out the Edward,
He walks through the fire.
brings Dick Perry, is played by Edward Chapman. He's holding them, but it's too late, and he dies. One thing that made me so sad about this movie is that, you know, we get the hobo character actors played by Edward Rigby. You know, he's separated from his buddy that he meets, so he walks off singing his terrible songs because that's how he makes money. People pay him to go away.
But it's also a song about being on your own again and your friend leaving you.
But we lose this great character actor early on, and then Edward Chapman, also a really good character actor. And then he dies. Simon Lack, who plays Emlyn Perry, he's alright.
He did an okay job.
He's
I mean,
just all right.
he was fine. But yeah, the fact, the father made such a strong impression that it is crazy
He
to
was
think
really
about
good.
he's only in a third of the movie.
He
That.
established the moral compass for the household.
Absolutely.
Moving forward.
Yes.
And the moral compass of Robeson, because after he dies, his character's name is David Goliath.
Yeah, David Goliath.
Like, in these British movies, it's like, what do we name the black character? Just take two biblical character names and just put them together. David Goliath. He doesn't leave the family. He's trying to contribute to their
He
household
feels responsibility.
while things are tough because the mines have shut down since
Yeah,
this
so-
incident. So they're just picking scrap heaps and shit.
And this is another thing that I really liked, and I think it speaks to Paul's sentiment of this really like shown them in a positive light, is that these men are on the dole and they don't fucking want to be.
Yeah.
They want to work. They're not just like, oh, I'm just going to go get my check and go fuck off. Like all day long, they're picking this heap, trying to find coal. Like they're doing everything that they can. Emlyn's writing letter after letter to the owners of the mine being like, we want to try to reopen. We'll go down there ourselves and see if we can get through it.
It's the only thing to do in this Welsh town.
Yeah, but none of them, but you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people would be like, oh, well, they're on government assistance and so they're just happy to be that way. That's not the case.
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, that's not the case. People don't want to do that if they don't have to. Now, it should be there if you need it.
What people want is dignity.
Exactly. Exactly.
And if a job's not going to provide it for them, they're not going to respect it. That's just the case.
Emlyn's ready to give up because the whole thing is he'd been going to school and he'd gotten the certificate so he could be a manager at the mine or something. But that was right like the same day that the terrible thing happened.
Yeah,
his father passed. He's trying to get married and there's all this stuff going on. And so he's ready to give up. And David Goliath goes and talks to his girlfriend and basically tells her like, you got to go tell him. He basically manipulates a little bit to get her to go tell him that I want to be with you.
Let him hit that shit.
I mean,
That's
there's one
essentially
part
what
where
I'm
they
saying.
talk about, there's like a cute thing at the beginning where they're flirty and he's talking about more than kissing or something, and she's like, well, you'll find out when we get married.
This movie does have a kind of a vibe of magical black man comes and helps the white town. I think it's a little more obvious in America when they do it, because you can have you can actually have more than one black person make sense in an American movie. A movie set in Wales, it kind of makes a little more sense. There's not going to be a bunch of black people hanging
This
around.
is true. So 5 men, David and Emlyn and 3 other guys, start out to walk the 270 something miles to London.
Way more than Oliver Twist did.
Yeah, way more. They struggle, but they make it, and they start singing for money at some point. And they get there, but when they get there, David's like, y'all go in and talk to the men.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit out here. You've got this.
He's like, no, they're probably racist, so go in there and just argue on behalf. And they're open to doing it, but it's dangerous in the mines, and the gas pocket's got to be sealed.
But because the war is about to happen, they're like, we need the coal. So if we can reopen, it's worth it.
But they have kind of a quota, right? Like several tons that they got to figure out how to get out of this mine to get their jobs going and moving again and getting this gas pocket sealed up.
Yeah, and there's a man in the room who actually is like a specialist of mines or something, and he's like, I will personally come with you to your town and lead this expedition to reopen.
And so they do. They go into this mine, and it's quite dangerous. Like, they're pretty good at playing up the drama of the mine. And at one point, they encounter a gas pocket behind a closed door, and then a collapse occurs. And it's kind of a drawn out collapse. It does look pretty good. Like the way the sense of impending danger, it is pretty well done. Even if we're well done with the harmonized singing that you want so bad by this point of the movie, we do get a little convincing danger here. And so, a few of these men, including, David and, Emlyn, are trapped in this rock, and it's pretty solid. And they have enough line to set one explosive, but they're going to have to hide behind this rock face, but the line's not very long, which means they're going to die in an hour. They're going to run out of oxygen. So whoever sets the detonator on that line, because it's just so short, is essentially forced to sacrifice their life.
And they try to do they put a rock in one hand, and they do kind of like a drawing to see who it's going to be. And it's going to be Emlyn. And before they even draw with Emlyn, David's already like, no, I will do it.
Yeah.
And then Emlyn's trying to be strong, and he's like, no, it's me. I've got to do it. Tell my mom this and this and this. And David actually ends up punching him to knock him out, because they're so weak already. So, because they're, like you said, they're running out of oxygen. And so he punches him and puts him around the corner.
All the best, son.
And then he goes and pushes it.
And sacrifices himself to save those boys. So it is like an ultimate act of heroism. We're down to one last Robeson this week, which is this one, and one last, Mr. Denzel movie. Mm-hmm. But our little theme of this week is the artist of the people. So you definitely, this movie about the dignity, the heroism of laborers, is definitely in Paul Robeson's wheelhouse. We
do get one more song at the end, and we do hear his voice, but he has passed.
Yeah. So a sad one. I feel like the things that, my biggest criticisms of this particular movie are just that we didn't get enough of certain elements within it. Mm-hmm. I can't really complain much about the rest of it.
Story-wise, I thought it was very good.
Yeah. You get the point of the movie. You get what it's trying to say. And it's just, and the point of it is not something you see that often. Of course, Paul Robeson is ultra charismatic.
Absolutely. The young love characters, that was the least interesting part to me.
Definitely.
Like you said, Emlyn was just fine. His little girl was just fine.
Simon Lack, he didn't have the chops compared to to the other stars in the movie. I mean, he did fine. He just seemed very, straightforward, like a very plain type guy compared to, the Paul Robeson and Edward Chapman.
It's
and
like
guys
he learned
that.
his lines and then just went in and was himself or something.
Yes.
Which, some people can do that.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to be the Drew Barrymore, right?
Yeah.
And that was Simon Lack.
This was a really good movie, though, I think.
Yeah. I think there is a rarity to it, and I think with these last couple of Robeson movies, I think it does help to understand the story surrounding it, and to understand the lead man himself.
Yep.
Sometimes, often we'll watch these movies, and then before we discuss them, I do some very surface reading, right? Production notes, maybe if I can find a nice article, and sometimes it will change my outlook of the movie. Not extremely most of the time, but like getting a context as to what's behind this, if I can discover any meanings I didn't glean before. But I think, we did properly study Robeson this month with these selections. And I think this is my favorite movie of his that we've discussed, personally.
That's hard.
I just really wanted more musical.
I did too.
I really, really wanted more musical. But I think I will give it a 3.75. I think that matches my Jericho score. Really. But I would edge this out by a 0.001 or something.
I'm going to match you. I don't remember what I gave Jericho, but let's see where it falls.
It's a 7.5. Jericho got a 7.75. Jericho.
Oh, because I think I gave Jericho a 4.
Yeah, you really like Jericho a lot.
That's what I was having a hard time, because I really did like Jericho.
The musical balance in Jericho was better. So I think it, though I will say the few musics we got in this one, just with the harmonizing of the choir, was superior.
Let's bump it up. I think they should be even.
Well, who knows what could happen to the ratings of these movies in the long run, right?
I know.
7.75 for The Proud Valley, sharing the ranks with another Robeson feature, Jericho, and also movies like American Gangster, Four Lions, and Inside, Llewyn Davis. These movies are at least as good as those movies. So that's it for our Paul Robeson. We're going to miss him. Who knows? He may pop up again. This collection that we named our month's theme after
Anytime
has double the amount that we actually talked about, as well as some documentaries, including the half-hour one, Tribute to the Artist.
I feel like we could do a whole other month with him and Denzel.
Well, there's a lot of topics, a lot of subjects, a lot of movies to behold, but it was a good month, this one. And next month is going to be Women in Crisis, all about women with issues, problems, things that they're dealing with to a variety of degrees. Another subject that is challenging to whittle down. But yes, we're going to encounter women in all kinds of trouble by the end of this week. So, but stay tuned. We got one more Mr. Denzel movie, and then we kick off our Year of Von Trier, Lars von Trier movies. By the end of the year, we will have discussed a dozen Lars von Trier movies, and because this election year is not going to be sad and depressing enough, is it? Right? We got to discuss a dozen Lars von Trier movies before we get to the end of it all. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for hanging out with us. Check the show notes for links to other places to find us. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, a correction, a fun fact. Do you have a favorite Paul Robeson story? I might, I think at the end of this episode, I'm going to post a video of him singing to Scottish miners, which we saw in that short documentary. I thought it was a very sweet performance.
Yeah. And
we will say goodbye to Paul Robeson for now. I'm sure he will come up again. Is there any last word you choose to say? Anything you want?
We love you.
I dreamed I saw Joey here last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joel, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. In Salt Lake City, Joe, says I, him standing by my bed. They framed you on a murder charge, says Joe, but I ain't dead. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. And standing there as big as life and smiling with his eyes, says Joe, what they can never kill went on to organize, went on to organize. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he.